The aftermath of the battle left Moretti Castle in ruins, its once pristine walls scarred by the violence that had unfolded within them. The threat of Lorenzo Moretti had been extinguished, his death ending the war between the DeLuca and Moretti families. But even in the midst of the chaos, there was peace. For Leonardo and Matteo, the world had shifted, and it was no longer defined by rivalry, betrayal, or bloodshed. It was defined by their love. Days had passed since their escape, the smoke of battle clearing from their lives, leaving only the tender traces of healing. Leonardo spent every moment by Matteo's side, never leaving him for more than a few hours, making up for lost time and building a life together that had always seemed impossible. The mansion was quieter now, the constant threats of the outside world fading as they focused on each other. But as peaceful as the days had been, the inevitable moment was upon them, the wedding. The promise that had been made long before they were born, the bond that had held their families together, would now be sealed by their union. It was a marriage of necessity, of tradition, but now, more than ever, it felt like a marriage of love, their love. Leonardo had always seen it as his duty, but now he knew that it was his privilege to be with Matteo. Matteo, too, had begun to see the truth. This was not a life he had chosen, but it was the life he would embrace, for the man he had come to love beyond anything he could have ever imagined. In the days leading up to the wedding, Leonardo spared no expense. The ceremony would be grand, a spectacle for all to see, a symbol of unity between two powerful families. But for Leonardo, the most important part was not the guests or the vows. It was the promise he had made to Matteo, the promise to protect him, to love him, and to never let him go. As the day approached, the tension between the two families dissipated, replaced by the quiet anticipation of the union that would bind them forever. The DeLuca and Santoro families had settled their differences, and even those who had once been wary of the marriage saw the strength in the bond between Leonardo and Matteo. The alliance, once born of necessity, was now a symbol of something much more meaningful, something that would withstand any storm. The morning of the wedding arrived, and Matteo stood before the full-length mirror, his heart racing. His suit, tailored perfectly to fit his frame, was dark and elegant, the fabric rich with tradition. But it wasn't the suit that made his hands shake. It was the thought of what was to come. What this marriage meant, not just for their families, but for them, for him and Leonardo. He ran his fingers over the delicate fabric of his shirt, nerves gnawing at him. He hadn't been sure at first. His heart had been filled with doubt, fear, and confusion. But now, standing in the quiet of his room, he knew what he wanted. He wanted this life with Leonardo. He wanted the love that had blossomed from the chaos, the love that had grown between the two of them amidst the dangers and betrayals. Matteo? His heart skipped at the sound of Leonardo's voice from the doorway. He turned to see Leonardo standing there, his eyes soft but intense. Dressed in a tailored suit of his own, he looked every bit the Mafia heir, but to Matteo, he was just the man he loved. Leonardo stepped forward, his gaze never leaving Matteo's. "You look perfect," he said, his voice a soft whisper, but his eyes held a fire that made Matteo's chest tighten. "I don't feel perfect," Matteo admitted, his voice shaky. "I'm nervous. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this." Leonardo reached out, cupping Matteo's face with both hands. His thumb gently brushed the skin of Matteo's cheek, his touch tender but strong. "You don't have to be ready. You just have to trust me, Matteo. Trust us. We've been through so much to get here. This is our moment." Matteo met his gaze, seeing the sincerity in Leonardo's eyes. The doubts that had lingered in his heart slowly began to melt away. He had been afraid of the responsibility, of the future. But now he saw nothing but love in Leonardo's eyes, and he knew that this was where he belonged. "I trust you, Leo," Matteo said, his voice stronger now, steady with the certainty he hadn't had before. "I'm ready." Leonardo smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. He leaned in, kissing Matteo gently on the lips, a kiss that spoke of everything they had been through, everything they had overcome. When they pulled away, Leonardo whispered, "We're going to be okay, Matteo. I'll never leave you." The wedding ceremony was grand, as expected. The DeLuca and Santoro families were present, their faces filled with a mixture of awe and approval. The moment the priest pronounced them husband and husband, the crowd erupted into applause. Matteo and Leonardo stood side by side, their hands clasped, their eyes locked on each other. In that moment, the world around them faded into the background. The vows they had exchanged weren't just words, they were promises, binding them together forever. As the reception went on, the laughter and joy of their families surrounding them, Leonardo couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. He had fought for this. He had fought for Matteo, and now Matteo was his, completely, wholly. Later that evening, as the last guests began to leave, Leonardo and Matteo found themselves alone in the quiet of the mansion. The air was thick with anticipation, and neither of them spoke at first. Leonardo stepped closer, his hand sliding into Matteo's. "Are you happy?" he asked, his voice low but full of meaning. Matteo smiled, his heart swelling with emotions he had never known. "I am," he said, his voice steady, a soft laugh escaping his lips. "I never thought I'd say this, but I think I'm starting to believe in destiny." Leonardo's smile was warm and genuine. "Then let's make our destiny together. Always." They shared a kiss, their lips meeting in a sweet, lingering embrace. It was the start of a new chapter for them, one that was theirs and theirs alone. And as the night stretched on, filled with quiet moments and unspoken promises, Leonardo and Matteo knew that nothing, no force, no rival, would ever be able to break their bond. Their love was unbreakable, forged in the fires of their past, and sealed by their union. Together, they had overcome it all, and now nothing could tear them apart.